Hey folks, so just wanted to hop on and share a unique experience that I had that adds to the ever-growing discourse on if we are inside of a simulation or matrix, which, the matrix is a little different. So just yesterday I was in meditation. When I woke up, I knew I had a day of readings ahead of me, and so I wanted to make sure that I got my energy together the best that I could. And what I have learned as of several months ago is that I have Reiki-like energy that flows through my hands, but it's actually the Egyptian form of Reiki. It's called Sekhem or Sekum, and I could be pronouncing that wrong, but it includes things like sacred geometry and Egyptian symbols, and it's tied to the goddess Sekhmet, and it has, of course, Egyptian and Atlantean roots. And so I've been practicing with this energy, and it's a healing technique. It's an energy clearing system, really. And it's extremely intelligent, right? So it knows where to go in the body, just as I assume that Reiki does in general. But I've been including this inside of some of my meditations, and yesterday that's what I did. So I began my deep breathing. My hands, will activate on, and sometimes I rub them together a bit if the room is cold. And I just place one hand over my heart and one over my belly, and I began my deep breathing. And it is a more intense, powerful energy than Reiki from what I have been told. So I was doing that, and then came along an image of trees, and there was really nothing out of the ordinary. They had white trunks, some goldish yellow leaves, and I thought, oh, okay, very pretty fall trees, wow, cool. But something about them was a little different. It was a little off, right? It was, a part of them was kind of obscured, like if you were to take a picture of a person's face and then stretch the image, and it would seem like the dimensions were a little off, right? That face would be wider. And that's kind of how the trees appeared. But they also appeared a little more perfect than I'm used to seeing. And I said, okay, where am I? Because it's not uncommon for my guides to kind of send me to different galaxies or different planets to see what's over there, to understand, to begin to understand how expansive the universe really is, how many planets actually exist, how many galaxies, there are, and begin to play with some of the frequencies as well. So that's, as I felt that they were doing, this was not planet Earth, right? And so I said, okay, where am I? And then I saw in the corner, Earth 2, Earth with the number 2 written out. And usually they don't write things out to me. That happened more so in my earlier stages of development. Now I mostly just hear them. But what I understood is they wrote that out so I wouldn't misinterpret that 2 as being TOO, like, oh, this is Earth 2. We're still on planet Earth, And so I said, okay, there's an Earth 2. Wow, that's interesting. And what is happening over here? Can you show me? And so they were showing me how everything was a little more pristine, like the mountains were clearer or something. The oceans were cleaner and clearer with less salt in them. The grass, just seemed a little more vibrant. The trees, for example, were a little more perfect. And I thought, wow. And so they explained that there was less salt in the salt water in the oceans and that sort of thing, because the salt apparently is some self-cleaning component to oceans. And so whenever we dump crap in them the way that humans do and pollute them, well, it amplifies like that salt production as a filtration system, as like a self-cleaning oven or something, right? So that was an explanation for that. And then they showed me the trees and how things work together, and they were talking to me about that. And I said, well, it's no different over here. We've got everything kind of working together. We've got the trees and the plants and the bees and the birds and all of the, different types of living beings working together. And they said, yeah, but on this earth that we exist within, it's more of a chorus. And on earth 2, they're all one voice. So they made a distinction, and I feel like I know what that means, even if it is quite similar. So there was that. Then they also showed me how this Earth 2 was kind of a copy and pasted situation. So if you think about files, like digital files, anything that we are creating digitally, and we want to create a backup version of it, we copy it, right? If it's files, we copy it. If it's like a website that we're building, we get to version 6 or 7 or 10 or whatever right before we hit publish, and then we make a copy of it just in case something goes wrong. Then we can use that copy and not have to start over from scratch. And it felt like a similar thing was happening with what they were showing me between Earth that we're on and Earth 2, right? And it wasn't just only that one planet, it was the entire solar system. So it was mirrored, so everything was the reverse, right? The direction of the continents, and where the oceans existed, and even the seasons. So where I am right now, it's fall, and in Earth 2, it would be spring. I'm not entirely sure why that happened, but that's how it was presented to me. And they said also that this was not an Earth that the scientists had discovered either, right? Because I said, oh, was this one of those Earths that the scientists think that they have discovered? And I heard no, they were looking in the wrong direction. So there's that. It also felt like that period, or that time when they copied it and created that sort of backup version, was right before religion became so a part of how life is governed, how we structure life, right? And how people who are in charge use it as a way to control. So it was kind of like at the tail end of that prehistoric era, moving into what I believe was like the Roman Empire era, right? And then they showed me that this was not going to be the only time that it was sort of copy and pasted for backup. And I'm just saying for backup purposes. I'm not quite sure what the intent is just yet, and even who or what created this planet and the planets in general. I might be asking those questions until I leave this plane, right? But the farther in meditation and the deeper I go, I'll be sure to share what I receive is in terms of information. But I heard that they would also be at the end of this era creating another copy. So we've got lots of intuitives and lots of psychics and lots of practitioners saying, hey, we're moving from 3D into 5D, and 5D energy, the 5D fields, and they show those images sometimes on their videos where it, like two earths, right, separate, right? So we get like, here's the one earth, and then another earth is pulled from it, and we've got a separation, like here's 3D and here's 5D. Well, they didn't show that to me like that is correct, not some literal sort of separation. But they did show that at the end of this era that they would be creating a new copy for backup. So at the end of when the external is more so mirroring the consciousness shifts that we have experienced collectively for our betterment, then they would be making another copy at that time. So how does all this tie into whether or not this is a simulation? Well, I heard that using that term is actually incorrect, And a better way to think about it and to talk about it would be to call it a perceived reality, because it is a very real thing here that we are experiencing and growing through and learning from all together, right? Although there are things like that copy and paste of the entire solar system that they showed me that makes it seem like it's a part of some kind of computer program, right? I just thought that was extremely fascinating information. Wanted to share it with you all, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.